As we near the end of the 1991 college football season, do you realize that a football fanatic in the state of Florida could come down with a case of delirious tremens? I mean, 3 teams in the national polls, top 5. This week, Governor Lawton Childs has been wearing this hat. Number 1, Florida State. Number 2, Miami. Number 5, Florida. He's going to need that in 2 weeks when Florida State goes down there, but at least he's not wearing a hole in his hair. Today, we've got number 1 Seminoles against number 2 Hurricanes. They meet in the capital city of Tallahassee.
It is a national championship.
1 versus 2, speed against speed.
Do whatever it takes to win.
The blood's going to be flowing.
You're a little bit more hungry to play against a number 1 team.
If you're going to play Miami, you're going to play the best.
Speed kills. Miami's tough. We're real tough.
If they're going to gamble, we have to beat them when they do gamble. The receivers are probably the quickest in the country.
Seminoles are definitely tougher. Seminoles are quicker. Man for man, we're a lot quicker. Very elusive.
I use my quickness more than speed. We're going to keep you off balance. We're going to make you run from sideline to sideline.
I love to run with the ball. If you practice making big plays, you don't try to force the big play. It comes to you.
It's going to be a battle until the end.
All it boils down to is who's going to win one of these.
Yeah, let the big dog hunt. And it is a wonderfully mild, dry day in the capital city. We'll have comments from the coaches in a moment.
2 things. Turnovers, number 1. Whoever doesn't turn it over has got an extremely good chance to win the game. And then who are going to make the big plays? In big games where you've got some great athletes playing on both sides of the football, who are going to make the big play? How's a big play going to be made, and what team is going to make it?
2 things. 1, that self controls, and 1 that maybe the other controls. Big play capability. They've got so many big play capability people on their team. You're scared they're going to break out any minute. That's 1, big play. The other is the old bugaboo mistakes. If one of us makes a lot of mistakes, we've had it. You can't survive this game with a lot of mistakes.
A couple of minutes. Chief Osceola on Renegade, waiting to slam the spear into the ground in the center of the stadium. And this symbol, this meaning, has been endorsed by the Seminole tribe and its officials. But when that spear goes into the ground, that means we are at war. The problem. Here's Chief Osceola.
Flutie flushed, throws it down, caught by Boston College. I don't believe it. It's a touchdown.
It's up. Just up to the right.
Welcome, everybody, to the College Football Retro Show. I'm your host, Dan Murphy. I'm here with my co-host, Brian Barnes. And Brian, we just saw the open there from Keith Jackson, 1991, Florida State, Miami. And we know it's a good one because there's a title to it, there's a name to it, and when it sticks this long, you know it's a good one. Wide right one. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, this was a rivalry that has been going on for a long time, but it really took hold, I remember, in the late 80s and early 90s. And these two teams were awesome. And I remember the hype for this game. And ironically, I was down in Florida, during this game. And so I remember even being down there in the hype for that. And it was pretty awesome. And what makes college football special, we keep going back to this every week, are special moments, and this is one of those special moments, like you mentioned, that lives on 30 some years later. And another thing, if you're from the Europe right now, you're from England, and you watch that opening of this game and you see Chief Osceola going to midfield and planting this spear, you have no idea what that is, and you're probably thinking, what the heck? But like, gosh, how cool is that? Again, which makes college football so special and unique.
But the other end of it, if you do know what it's about and you see that open, you got goosebumps. You got chills. I mean, it's awesome.
You do. And we're not, I mean, we don't have a rooting interest in this game, but like, just like, wow, holy heck, let's go, and and that happens just about every Saturday in the fall in the United States.
Yeah, when Keith Jackson says, when this spear goes into the ground, that means we are at war.
Right?
Like, how do you not get fired up after seeing that?
No question. And especially, like, again, these two teams, and, being 1-2 with this late in the season and this important of a game. Because basically this game, like, I mean, not to give it away, it picks a national champion, right? I mean, we both agree with that. And it was so cool, and it was a nationally televised game, and everybody was watching. And like you said, something we're remembering now, talking about it in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, locally, I mean, we know Michigan, Ohio State, a lot of times the term is the Big Ten, and recently, a lot of times the term is the national champion. This is what Miami, Florida State was in the early 90s. I mean, a lot of times this was the game everybody circled nationally. This is a game that's going to decide potentially a national championship.
It was. And for me, like, and maybe for you, but growing up in the Midwest, like, you think of fall football, you think of autumn leaves, you think of colder weather and stuff like that. But this was a pretty cool late game moment in Southern Florida, to see this type of game. And it kind of changed my view of college football as a 13-year-old. So
yeah,
absolutely.
All right, Brian. Well, let's go ahead and get into the rosters and the coaching staffs for both teams.
Yeah, so both of these teams were undefeated. I'm going to start with Miami. They were the team of the 80s, if you remember. They had national championship wins in 1983, 1987, and 1989, which happened to be Dennis Erickson's first year, and he was the head coach of the Hurricanes then. And their coaching staff, listen to some of these names, are pretty loaded. Dennis Erickson, obviously, who went on to coach in the NFL with the Seahawks after his stint with the Hurricanes. Sonny Lubick, who became the head coach of Colorado State, had a long run there. Ed Orgeron, who everybody knows about, not just his raspy voice, but he won a national title with LSU and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And then Tommy Tuberville, who was a head coach at Auburn and a few other places as well. And I believe he's now a senator, ironically. Yeah. But yeah, that loaded coaching staff. And, their talent that, some of the later Miami teams had more, I would say, NFL talent. You think about the teams, I believe 2001, and then you had Andre Johnson, and guys like that. So this one wasn't as NFL loaded, but they still had some really good players. Quarterback Gino Torretta, Horace Copeland was a receiver, linebacker Darren Smith played in the NFL. Ryan McNeil was a corner for a long time in the NFL. I believe was a Lion for some time. And then an offensive lineman, kind of a special name and popular name to current Hurricanes fans, is Mario Cristobal, who, is currently the head coach at Miami. So they were loaded, and they were the away team for this game. And, again, special moment. And Miami was actually number one this game. They were number two in Florida State. Florida State was number one. And so Florida State, up to that point, did not have a national title. They won few national titles later on for Bobby Bowden. But the two guys on the staff, Bobby Bowden is a legend, obviously, for all the successes he's had at Florida State and previously at West Virginia, and Mark Richt, who later on went to be the head coach at Georgia and had a lot of success there. They had a ton of NFL talent, and one that who really stood out to me in research, and there were some names that I remembered, but one who I didn't realize was a contributor to that team was Marion Butts, who was a starting running back for the San Diego Chargers, and helped lead them to a Super Bowl appearance against the 49ers in, I believe, 95. But he was on that team. Terrell Buckley was an All-American. We talked about him last time when he returned an interception for a touchdown against Michigan early on. Derek Brooks was a freshman on that team. Amp Lee and Casey Weldon was our quarterback, and he was a finalist. And again, those teams were loaded, and there were three instances specifically that I could think of where, Florida State, they had national title teams, they had national title caliber teams, and they ran into a tough Miami team. And well, I'm not going to give it away. We'll say that for later. But let's just say both of these teams were loaded, Dan, and it was an awesome game.
Yeah. That's why they go in, ranked 1 and 2. And we kind of talked about last week, when we talked about we were going to do this game, you don't oftentimes get a 1 versus 2 matchup late in the regular season. Obviously, you get it in bowl games and things like that, but to get a 1 versus 2 late in the regular season it just doesn't happen very often.
No, it is rare. And, thankfully this was a rivalry game, because at the time it was kind of goofy. Florida State was technically an independent.
Yeah.
And so they didn't, they didn't have a league schedule, and Miami was in the Big East, but they were rivals, and this was a game that they made sure they played every year. But you're right, late in the season, that's why it's such a big deal when those games get hyped up and so important toward the end of the year. And again, college football was different then. So if this game is played week 1, and the winner wins and the loser loses, like, they still have a full regular season to possibly make up for that loss. Right. But this game being so late, like, there was, again, pre-playoff or anything, they were done, so quite important.
This game, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but then doesn't this game, at least more recently or within the last 20 years, has kind of more been an early season matchup? Whereas this one was late in the season?
No, you're right. It has been. And last year they played in late October, and there was a span and from 2015 to 2018. So 1, 2, 3, 4 year span where the game was played in early October. So it was earlier a little bit previously than this one, so late in the season. But yeah, you're right. This game that we're talking about today wasn't until the middle of November. So definitely
this is almost. I mean, and for Florida State, that's tough. I mean, to have Miami and Florida almost back to back to end your season that's just tough, man.
Yeah, for sure it is. And again, remember, this was the Florida State team we talked about went to Michigan earlier in the season. You know what I'm saying? So they had to travel way up north to play Michigan, who was number 3, and we talked about last week having just come off that game against Notre Dame. So yeah, definitely not easy for those guys.
Yeah, as I was watching something, researching this game, they were talking about, like, well, we've already played a game of the century. We went up and played Michigan earlier in the year. So big games are nothing new to us.
So when people, one of the arguments people always say why they wanted a playoff was, then you get those big games, then teams aren't afraid to play each other because the game, even if they lose, they'll get into the playoff. Well, guess what? Big games freaking happened a lot back then.
Yeah. But I would say lately, last 10 years, teams were really pretty reluctant to schedule non-conference opponents. Big non-conference opponents. So.
Quite true. And who knows if these teams play as much if it wasn't a rivalry, like, right, you know what I mean? So, like, look at what happened to Michigan and Notre Dame. They don't play every year anymore for the time being and stuff. So who knows at that point?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into it here. We saw the open. We've, gone over the coaches and the rosters. So we're going to jump right in. This is going to be Miami's first drive. They got the opening kickoff. Let's see where it goes.
Okay. The Miami Hurricanes from the 26. The ball is swung out to McGuire. He's got some room to work. And the big guy from side of the field now, and McGuire is back in there at the running back position and has the ball and has daylight. He has a
Miami opens the game just going smash mouth football right off the bat. You thought they would go more with their speed, but and they play smash mouth football right down the field here.
Again, Williams goes in motion, no backs behind Beretta. Got some room, takes off for the corner, won't get there. Penalty flag.
Ended up being a late hit.
Again, as Beretta was hit, having crossed the line. That's a pretty narrow call that time. I think it's together. They're knocking on the door. Give it to McGuire. He's short. He's got a touchdown. He was inside the pile and rolled into the end zone. The late call says 6.
So pretty interesting there, Brian. You know, like I said, you think Miami's going to come out with their speed and their receivers, and you hear Torretta in the open talk about we got the fastest receivers in the country, and instead they play smash mouth football and run it right down Florida State's throats for a touchdown in the first drive.
You know, they did. And, you know, one of the cool things early on, if you watch Miami's offense, like with the shot on the screen right now with Florida State, you know, that's a traditional 21 personnel offense, pro I formation. And what Dennis Erickson brought, his version of the one back spread was pretty unique at the time. And you noticed they had some motion out of the backfield on their first drive. Miami did. And so, yeah, they were high power, and they had guys that could run like crazy and or you know, can create some highlight reel plays. But you know, it could have been a game plan thing, could have been a personnel thing they could take advantage of. Maybe it was one of those like, hey, we're going to show these guys that we can play this brand of football as well. And you know, I seem to mention it every week. That first drive for a defense is really challenging. It can be really difficult because it's just hard to simulate game speed in practice, and an offense has the advantage that first drive. But that's a great point.
Yeah. All right, so we get a couple punts exchanged, and then Florida State's going to get a drive here.
Joe blitz. Armstead started trying to anticipate. Now has to withdraw, but he's still going to go, and they run Antley up the middle. When you blitz, you leave some daylight behind where the line. Second down and 15. Weldon goes the other way, gets his pass off. He's got Antley down there. He's got it inside.
Big pass play to Antley.
Antley was one of my favorite college players ever, by the way.
But Florida State, after the big play to Antley, they end up getting shut down and forced to kick a short field goal. So we're going to be 7-3 here now.
This is the big guy. Loses the football. Florida State recovers the fumble. They stripped it away from McGuire. Ostaziski covered it. Ball resting at the 1-yard hash mark.
So after Florida State gets the fumble from Miami, they're going to driving down here, and ends up they get shut down for a few plays, and we're going to get a 4th and 1 here from the goal line.
4th down.
It's a fullback dive. So a key fumble there early in the game. Florida State the opportunity to take the lead, and they do. 10-7 Florida State.
Passes away. Intercepted. Intercepted at the 12-yard line by Terrell Buckley.
So we heard Bobby Bowden in the beginning of the show talk about how the big thing about this game is going to be mistakes. You cannot make big mistakes in this game, especially self-enforced mistakes like this. And Miami has a fumble, and then they get another deep drive, and they get an interception. So just some crucial mistakes by Miami here in the first half.
And, you know, an underrated mistake, I'm sure if you ask Bobby Bowden about it later on or after the game was, you know, we saw the big play. Casey Weldon threw the ball to Antley, and he got caught, looked like inside the 2. You know, he got tackled inside the 2, and they were forced to kick a field goal. And so I'm sure, you know, play caller wise, Mark Richter or Bobby Bowden thinking about it, looking back, like they might consider that a mistake. You know, because that's a four-point swing right there, and this game ends up being really close. But it was funny you mentioned their Florida State's first touchdown you called it, the fullback dive. I don't even know if Florida State has a fullback on their roster nowadays, which is just how crazy,
a lot of Division I teams and NFL teams don't have fullbacks anymore.
Right. Yeah, which is kind of mind-boggling. And listen, I joke, and every people that know me, know I appreciate the spread offense and what it offers, but there's part of me that like really loves watching that style of play and those type of players too. So gotta give, and I started out as a fullback as a player back in the day, so we gotta give those guys some love.
Yeah, and the fullback still exists. It's just different now. I mean, it's like the teams use an H-back, which is a variation, basically, of doing fullback type things. You have a running back, you can run quarterback power, you can run quarterback dive. With the running back actually blocking almost like he's a fullback. So maybe the fullback's out of the game, but aspects of what the fullback used to do are still in it. Well, it's just done differently.
It's definitely evolved. Like you just mentioned, like it used to be, they're not just a guy that, hey, you're going to go block and ISO or kick out or protect the quarterback. Now they're doing a lot of different things. They're motioning, they're wham blocking on a down lineman, or they're catching the ball out of the backfield, on a bootleg. So yeah, you're right. It's evolved.
The aspect of the quarterback being able to run. I mean, they did. I mean, sometimes back in the day, but not as much as now. Like a lot of times in the college teams, if your quarterback isn't an athlete, it's kind of a disadvantage at this point now.
Totally right. Totally right.
So we saw Miami's had a couple turnovers early. They're going to get another deep drive here, and once again, make a big mistake.
Loretta still got it. Ball is slapped out of there on the tip. It is intercepted. Marvin Jones has the interception, but it was tipped by Richard Code.
So Miami had the fumble earlier that gave Florida State an opportunity to score a touchdown, which they scored 7 off of. They have a deep drive where they throw an interception to Buckley, and now another deep drive into Florida State territory that ends in interception. So 3 turnovers in the first half. Just brutal.
It is, and by the way, Marvin Jones, I didn't mention in the cold open, but he played in the NFL for the New York Jets, and he was obviously pretty good as well. But yeah, in that situation, you teach quarterbacks you don't want to throw it late over the middle, but especially when he's running to his right and throwing across his body, he's not going to get as much on it, and defenders have more time to react to it, and that's what happened there. But even with the mistakes going on early, watching this game, and I don't know how you felt about it, Dan, going back and researching it, but I never felt like the game was sloppy. And I don't know if that's because like the teams were so talented, or it was more not sloppiness, but good plays by the opponent. Yeah. But I just didn't feel like it was like a sloppy game. I just felt like, wow, these are two good football teams going at it.
Yeah. And you look at Miami's first 3 turnovers, maybe not so much the fumble, but the 2 interceptions, like you said, Brian, it's hard to simulate speed in practice, and trying to simulate the speed of the opposing defenses in this game. I mean, that's tough. You got a lot of future NFL players that are playing on both defenses. Yeah. So it's understandable that, we can call them mistakes, but it's also big plays being made by the defenses.
Yeah. It's a good football. I mean, obviously the two top ranked teams in the country going back and forth.
Yeah. So Florida State, after the turnover, has a chance to drive down and increase their lead.
He throws a pass. He's getting checked. Like that. Pass is away.
Boom. Another interception, but this is time by Miami's defense. But again, Brian, like you said, is it so much a mistake, or is it more Miami's defense making a play? Lynn gets a hit, as he's throwing, it forces the bad throw, and you get the interception. So now Miami's going to get the ball at Florida State territory again towards the end of the half here to try to tie or take the lead.
At the 40-yard line of Florida State.
They got a 3rd down play and a sack by Florida State's defense.
Right time, right place.
So that forces Miami to kick a long field goal to end the half here.
To the 24-yard line. Game between a linebacker and defensive end. Carlos Huerta.
It's blocked. So we hit into halftime, Brian, 10-7. You got to be thinking, if you're Miami, like, man, we're moving the ball, we're making things happen defensively, but man, we just got to finish these drives. We got to stop turning the ball over and start scoring some points once we get in the red zone.
Yeah, I think if you were to, going into the game, would have said the score would have been 10-7 at halftime, you probably wouldn't have believed it, just because, again, the offenses are so good. But defenses are fantastic as well. But yeah, those mistakes you could argue cost Miami a few scores, and the score could be, they could be up considerably in this game. But yeah, good football game. I don't think you feel like one team is head and shoulders above the other one, and which leads up to an exciting second half.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we're going to pick it up here with Florida State. Florida State's first drive of the half.
Here comes the blitz. Medeiros coming around from the back. Johnson puts it in the air on the one play he's got. Gives it to Amp Lee. And Amp Lee runs that football across the 40-yard line to the conversion. Weldon rolls it out. Passes away. Passes good.
Big third and 10 pickup for Florida State.
First time today at the 32-yard line against everybody they played. Another quick pop. Whoa, he drilled it. And it's caught by McCorvey. Remarkable family. Weldon back. Gets his pass away. Pass is completed. And it'll go for another first down for Florida State. It looked like Jerry Thomas. Now it's
So Florida State, another drive where they get inside the 10, but get shut down. And of course, kick another field goal.
13-7. Florida State now leads by 6.
So 13-7, but Florida State, man, a couple opportunities where they've been deep in Miami territory and have had to settle for 3.
Yep, you really wish they were touchdowns.
Absolutely.
Looking back at it, and by the way, it's great listening to this and watching it again, Dan, with you, because I keep hearing names of guys that I remember that guy, how good he was, Kes McCorvey, and our Kes McCorvey, and how awesome of a receiver name that was as well. He was a really good college football player for Florida State, but great name, great football name.
Yes.
8:29 to play, third quarter.
So after a couple punts, it's going to be Florida State ball here again. Edgar Bennett, another one.
Right?
At the 38-yard line.
Was good for the Packers for years.
Mm-hmm. Super Bowl champion with the Packers.
Yes, that's right.
Amp Lee blows it up the middle. I mean, you go looking for Amp and you just dominate. Weldon's pass is good. Edgar Bennett, number 22, gets down to the 10-yard line. He's got a possession, a long drive.
Pause it here real quick, Brian. So we got another good Florida State drive inside the 10. Now this is going to be 3rd and goal from the 5-yard line. And I'm just going to say it's an interesting play call, especially considering where the ball is. It's on the left hash here.
Florida State. Let's go on here. Yep. Edgar Bennett bounces, headed for the corner, won't get there. Taken down.
So again, they get a run play to the short side of the field on 3rd and goal from the 5. I don't know. I don't know.
Unless there was maybe a personnel advantage they liked into the boundary, or by formation there's something to like maybe, but I'm with you. It seems like they've again, they're going to look back, and you want to end every drive with a kick, but they really wish, one or two of these are touchdowns. We might have
So we're going to go ahead. This is going to be Florida State field goal here, but this is going to be 3 drives now that they've gotten inside Miami's 10 and settled for 3.
So Jerry Thomas becomes a major persona in this game with his 3rd field goal. The kicker misses 2 or 3 times. You won't have a whole lot of
Miami's ensuing drive.
There's a big blow up the middle by McGuire.
Gonna get a Florida State sack on 3rd down here, forcing a Miami field goal. And this is a big kick here to cut it to 1 score.
Steps around, they need 3 points. Werner from 45 yards out, plenty of leg, and he got it. Carlos Huerta. Nice when you're young. Ball is back.
So we exchange a couple of punts. Now Miami's got the ball down 6 with a little over 6 minutes to go here.
Looking around, lobs it downfield for Bell.
And that's just a huge catch right there for Miami.
Beautifully touched pass. Great catch, huh? Oh. Guard's got it. Runs right over a man. Takes it all the way down to the 15-yard line.
You notice here in the 4th quarter here, Brian, they're starting to get back to what they did in the first drive. Getting it to McGuire and running it between the tackles.
Don't overthink it.
Beretta back quick.
This was actually 4th down here, which was obviously a huge completion.
Good for a first down and goal to go at the 3-yard away from the goal line with Jones in the backfield. Larry Jones, he has it. He's got a touchdown. Miami has scored.
After the ensuing extra point, Miami takes the lead 17-16. We got 3 minutes left here. It's going to be Florida State ball. But after Miami scores here, Brian, if you're a Florida State fan, or even if you're even on the coaching staff, you got to be thinking, man, we really missed some opportunities earlier in this game. Because you think even after you kick the field goal, you got a 9-point lead. You're feeling pretty comfortable with where things are. But bam, Miami gets a drive for a field goal. Florida State punts, Miami drives down, scores a touchdown, bang, Miami's got the lead.
Yeah, you're hopefully as a staff, you're not thinking that. You're just, thinking of the next play and like, all right, we've made a few field goals already this game, so we're pretty confident with our kicker. We know what we need to do. We don't need to get a touchdown here. Let's just get in his range and win this game. But it's really easy. It's really easy to question and second guess when you're in this situation.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I should say more as a Florida State fan. You're thinking now, like, how are we down? Like having 3 drives inside the 10, made it settle for 3.
Yeah.
So just pretty crazy. But Florida State does have the ball here, 3 minutes to go, right? And like you said, they're down 1. All they need is a field goal, and their field goal kicker's been pretty solid, pretty consistent, especially in this game.
Coming to the ball, 13 of 21 for 176 yards. His pass is away to the sideline, and it's close to a first down. Weldon's pass again to the sideline. It is caught at the 44-yard. Number 1's trailing by a point. They don't have it yet. Edgar Bennett reaching for it to the 46-yard line. Weldon back, a lot of time, gets it away to the side. The pass is caught over there by Edgar Bennett, and Bennett goes out of bounds at the 33. Number 1 trails, number 2 by a point. Weldon's pass is away for Terrell. He's in the end zone. He's got a penalty flag.
So pretty obviously huge play here with a pass interference, but they make the call. What's interesting about this, Brian, if this is the NFL, the ball gets placed at the 1-yard line. With it being in college, it's only a 15-yard penalty, so the ball gets moved to the 18-yard line here. I'm interested what you think is better and what you would prefer.
Well, I'm an offensive guy, so like what's crazy though is I've had a discussion with people where I think in a way you could eliminate pass interference altogether and make for a more interesting game. And I know that sounds crazy. I'm not talking about holding, I'm not talking about stuff like that, but like, defenders have a right to the football too, right? And I think it would be awesome to see guys go up for it and not worry about getting that call. But that's a discussion for another day, Dan. But in this instance, I'm an offensive thinker, so you know what? Let's put the ball on the 1-yard line. But this definitely favors the defense. I mean, there are times like you're beat on a play for a touchdown. Like we've told kids before, just tackle him. Like tackle that guy. You're beat. We'd rather give up 15 yards than a touchdown. And then this, unfortunately for Florida State, it's. They don't have the ball on the 1-yard line where, then, the playbook is wide open, and.
Or, I mean, if you get the ball at the 1, depending on the timeout situation, man, you could take knees and then kick a field goal when it's practically an extra point.
For sure. Every option is available, but tough break.
So Florida State has the ball at the 18. But look how much time. You got about 53 seconds left here. What are you thinking as a coach, as a play caller? Are you thinking, hey, let's not maybe necessarily get aggressive, but maybe let's not take the touchdown off the table right now.
Yeah, but kind of like what you were saying though, you're in a position, you've made 3 field goals already. You're in a position to win the game, and like we talked about before the game, the winner of this game probably is going to be the national champion. So you finish this game, you win this game. You're doing whatever you can to do that. And hey, we've made some field goals. You know what? We're in position to win. already we're in field goal range, center the ball or get the ball in a hash so that our kicker is comfortable and go from there. So probably not overthinking that in this instance,
But he's got to remember his field goal kickers have been his problem all year.
Amply slipping and sliding, and we'll get a couple of
So I'm
yards.
interested of what the field goal kicker, what he would prefer. Middle of the field, left hash, or right hash. Because you saw there, they spiked it. All right, so the ball was on the left hash. And we talked about the very first game that we did. Michigan against Michigan State. Michigan had a field goal at the end of the half against Michigan State, and the ball was on the offense's left hash. And I talked about how the hash marks are very wide in college football as compared to the NFL. So when the ball is on a hash, the ball actually lines up outside of the field goals. So that can be a tough angle. This one's a little bit, I mean, they're at the 18. You didn't think the angle would be too tough, but it's still, I wonder if that's actually where he wanted it, because it looks like Florida State is setting it up and trying to set it up on the left hash for him.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. That's a great question. And it makes sense to me that's what it looked like that they were trying to do, put it on that hash.
And the fact that they spiked the ball.
Yeah.
After they got the ball set up in the left hash, it tells me that's probably where he wanted it.
Yeah.
I would think that the coach asked him, or at least they knew going in, like, hey, this is where he prefers it. This is where he wants it.
Sure. I mean, they know all that stuff, right? What distance is he comfortable from? Like, what yard line do we have to get to? Things like that. So absolutely.
All right. So here we go. One of the most famous field goals in the history of college football coming up right here.
Be a 34-yard try, and this.
Let's see, he's already made 30.
This could be for a national championship. It's up. Missed it to the right.
It gets me every time. Bobby Bowden, man. Thinks they made it. It's just the shock look on his face when he realized that they actually missed it.
Miami players are all over the field. They're going to be penalized for it, but so what?
We're going to see how close this actually was here. That's the difference. That's the difference between a national championship and not, right there. It's unbelievable.
Touched his knee and blew the ball up in the air, and the prancing and dancing is on. Miami Hurricanes all over the field at Doak Campbell Stadium. The clock ticks into history. Your final score, Miami 17, Florida State 16.
There it is.
And the game should have never came down to a kick, and I know Florida State fans probably to this day are saying, you're on scholarship to make kicks, just make a kick for sure. The game shouldn't come down to that. Like we talked about, they had those opportunities to score touchdowns and they didn't, And so Bobby Bowden talked about mistakes, and those aren't mistakes that show up as, turnovers and whatnot and penalties, but those are mistakes that, when you got a chance to, win the game, go win the game,
Yeah. And I guess that's my point a little bit too, with how they set up the field goal, spiking the ball on third down. I just, maybe you can get a little bit closer, like, I don't know. It just seems like the whole second half really for Florida State was just overly conservative at times. And I go back to that third and goal from the 5 and running to the short side of the field. I just, man.
Yeah.
Man, when you got the athletes that you do, I don't know.
Well, and Casey Weldon, the quarterback, finished second in the Heisman that year to Desmond Howard, right? And you're being ultra conservative. You're saying, you don't trust your quarterback. So that's that's a great point. That's a great question. But wow, what an amazing ending.
Yeah. It just seemed like, I go back to that play. It just seems like they were comfortable getting the 2-score lead, because the field goal gave them the 9-point lead, and they're thinking, okay, our defenses play great.
Well, that's probably a big part of it. Their defense did play really well, and their defense, it's not like they played poorly. They gave up, 17 points. So it's not like they gave up 10 more points the rest of the game against a great offense. So it wasn't like they they sucked. But as a staff, like, no, like we're defense is playing pretty well. We'll probably, get points again, but that happens. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. So Brian, let's go ahead. Let us know where these both teams went after this. What was the aftermath?
Yeah, goodness. So, Bobby Bowden quoted at one point, when he retired, when I die, they'll chisel on my tombstone, but he played Miami. And his record was 10-21 against Miami. And it was, heartbreaking. They had 3 seasons where Florida State had national championship caliber teams, but they lost to Miami. And this was kind of the start of it. And so Florida State ends up 2 weeks later getting upset by Florida, another rivalry game. Florida was really good. And then, but they went on, Florida State then went on to the Cotton Bowl to beat Texas A&M by a weird score of 10-2. So again, very close games. This college football season was uberly competitive, and Miami goes on and wins their last 2 regular season games. Their next week, they had to go to Boston College to play, and it was a really tight game. They barely beat Boston College, obviously a pretty big letdown. That's a pretty tough to overcome those letdowns. And then they played in the Orange Bowl and defeated number 11 Nebraska, and it wasn't really close. They shut them out 22-0. So this was, one of the knocks on college football then. Washington had its ties to go to the Rose Bowl, and, Miami playing in the Orange Bowl. Washington went undefeated as well, so we had co-national championships. But, looking back on it, that would have been a great game. Washington beat that Michigan team in the Rose Bowl pretty handedly. I think it was 34-14. So Washington was loaded. That'd have been something to see Washington and Miami, but never got that opportunity, with the bowl structure at the time and no playoff system. But again, yeah, we still think if Florida State wins that game, we think I do anyway. I think they beat Florida, and I think they win their bowl game, and I think they're their national title, because college football, more than I think any other sport, the emotions of it and the letdowns, you don't have the same team every week, and so we think Florida State's your national champion. But I wonder if that would have. With that game, imagine we're in the current playoff, format that we have, and it's Florida State and Miami in a rematch. Like, what kind of hype does that get? Is it the same? Is it different? Like I just said, the teams would probably be different. It'd be a month later. Who knows what their health looks like then? But is it the same game? Is it the same excitement that we just watched? I don't know.
I mean, it's hard to bring up that, anticipation that you had for the first game and do it again. Like, I don't know. Because I remember, I don't know, was it 96, 97, somewhere in that range, where Florida and Florida State played the last game of the regular season, then they played again in the bowl game, which was basically a de facto national championship. And I remember then it just didn't feel right.
It didn't. Yeah, well, that's funny. I mean, that'd been a great game to go do a deep dive as well, because it was 1-3. Florida State won the regular season game, and they rematched in the Sugar Bowl, and Arizona State was number 2. And the argument was going to be that if Arizona State won and Florida would have won, Arizona State, they would have been the only undefeated team in the country. But they lost to Ohio State team who was not undefeated, because that year they lost to Michigan, but we could go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, that was that rematch, and Florida had made some adjustments. They were more in the gun. I remember that, and all that. But I'm with you. It was, Florida State does what it had to do in the regular season to feature rival and goes undefeated. And then, oh, by the way, you got to play them again.
You have to ask the team to beat them twice. Especially when you had already played them late in the year, and you already had all that anticipation, all that emotion, and you win the game. And then just a few weeks later, you got to do it again.
Because the rematch always favors the team that loses. Yeah. It just always does. It always does. And again, though, this is the system we have. And I think we talked about it before, where this year, and I remember watching, some sports shows today talking about it, how Michigan, Ohio State, and, Michigan has 4 wins in a row against them. But Ryan Day's like, what do I care? I just want a national title. If you think about it, that's the ultimate goal, right? As much as, but the powers that be want it to become more like the NFL. And so in the NFL, nobody cares who the Philadelphia Eagles lost to in the regular season, right? It doesn't matter. That city's fan base doesn't have bragging rights, because the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and it's a bummer. It's unfortunate, but yeah.
That's why it used to be better.
It used to be better.
Even though we bring up this one, the whole reason the
Yeah.
playoffs exists
I mean, yeah.
is because of the situation that happened in '91, is these shared national championships.
Yeah.
I still think I thought we had a good system with 4.
I agree. I agree 4, and then leaving undefeated Florida State out. That became problematic. I mean, we maybe we'll ask our listeners if how they feel about this. Like you and I could take a deep dive into the playoff argument. I know a lot of other shows have it, and a lot of other college football gurus have it, but I would love to give my opinion on that whole thing, because this is from a fan perspective. It was pretty, like, again, two things could be right at once. It was pretty awesome to watch Ohio State go through like that path to winning the national title last year. Like that was a gauntlet, and that was pretty cool to watch. But that can be correct that it was neat, but it also could be correct that their game to end the regular season against Michigan didn't mean as much, and which is unfortunate and sad. So yeah, that'd be a fun discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was our deep dive on Miami, Florida State, 1991, one of the all-time classics. And obviously, like I said, anytime a game has a name to it and it sticks for this long, it's an all-time classic. So Wide Right 1. Down the road, we'll cover the 92 game, which will be Wide Right 2, but that's going to be a little bit further down the road. But I think we'll eventually hit all the Wide Rights. I think there's 3 total, right? If I'm not mistaken.
There are. Yeah. And this might be my favorite one we cover that doesn't include any Michigan teams. This might be, regardless of what we do down, what we plan on doing going forward. This might be my favorite.
Yeah, it's an all-time classic, absolutely.
Yeah.
But next week, we're gonna do the 2005 Penn State Michigan game, which was actually a Michigan team that was down. They were not having a great year, but Penn State was undefeated going into that game, and it would end up being Penn State's only loss that year. A last-second touchdown by Mario Manningham. A really, really crazy game that happened in the Big House. And the following week, we'll actually give you guys a heads up, is going to be a game from this that was going on at the exact same time, just 2 hours down the road in Notre Dame. It was Notre Dame USC, another all-time classic. So we got a couple good ones coming ahead of us, but this was our deep dive of the 91 Miami Florida State game. So for Brian, I'm Dan Murphy, and we'll see you next week.